Ladies and gentlemen, I'm here to tell you what I think you already know, but I watch it up close every day. Bravery resides in the heart of Preston Stewart, and time again, I witness him summon it day after day. This man has courage in his soul, compassion in his heart, and a spine of steel. And because of that, because of all the actions he took, because of the calls he made, because of the determination of our listeners and the unparalleled bravery of our special forces, we can now proudly say what we've been saying for the past 6 months. Doug the Pug is dead, Jimmy Kimmel is alive, and Ukraine still stands. We are so back. Remember to like, comment, subscribe, give us 5 stars on Spotify. We've never been more back.
Did Doug the Pug die? Did he die?
I'm hoping. I mean,
I feel like we get sued for that. This is a major media personality, right? Like there's contract. The guy's in Progressive commercials. What if he doesn't get booked for the next commercial because somebody heard this and they're like, well, he's dead. Write him off.
Well, I'm trying to give hope to the people. If you read the comments, people are in distress. Yeah. They're messaging us on all kinds of platforms, and they're saying, I keep seeing Doug the Pug during Vols games, during college football, during the NFL.
It's distressing. I get it. No, I get it. Yeah,
they're seeing it during the Premier League, and they say they're sick to their stomach. They said it's like the London Blitz again. Every time they see Doug the Pug, they get generational trauma from when their parents are being bombed by the Nazis.
That's fair.
It's horrible what he's doing to everyone.
It's rational.
So, but I mean, that was. I promised you a good intro. Was that not electric? Okay.
Didn't. All right. Yep, that was good. That's gonna be hard to top.
Yes. Okay. So. Let's talk about off the top. You want to go Ukraine or you want to go Israel? Or do you want to go Venezuela?
No, you mentioned we stumbled and didn't get into questions last time. So what do you think about starting with some questions around the you said that a lot was around this U.S.
Oh, yes. Everyone
military
wants
meeting.
To know about the meeting.
Let's do that.
So everyone wants to know about what's going on at this meeting. For those who don't know, Pete Hegseth, our vaunted Secretary of Defense, called a rare meeting, perhaps the first time it's ever happened, at least at this scale, for all 800 generals and admirals or general level to come to Quantico, a military base in Virginia for the Marine Corps, and they are going to have a secret meeting. But, you know, there's a lot of speculation. A lot of people thought maybe it's a coup, maybe this is war. But I'll tell you what I told Preston Stewart, our brave man who has a spine of steel. I said you can't really keep a secret telling 800 people anything, so it's definitely not war or a coup. And then we ended up finding out what it was, didn't we, Preston? Via leaks.
Well, it's kind of. I don't think we actually know quite yet. So no longer in the military, but fortunate to have a lot of friends that are, and this is a topic of question because nobody really knows. It sounds like this information, the fact that this is happening, is actually the result of a leak. As in the invite, if you will, or the ordering everybody home, came through classified channels, and someone leaked it. It's hard to imagine this staying secret for long. This is, you said, or I've heard people refer to this as unusual. That's not the correct phrase, because unusual suggests, like, it doesn't happen very often. I don't know that this has happened ever. Like, since Washington was able to assemble his generals, during the Revolutionary War, I don't know that there has been a time where all generals from the U.S. military have come together for one thing. Just ever. Like, the end of World War II, we still had generals overseas in Europe and the Pacific, implementing the reconstruction. So it's unusual to say the least. I can't use that term. It's unprecedented, maybe, is a better way to put it.
Unprecedented.
Unprecedented. But it doesn't. The thing is, like, we're going to try to get into these details of, like, yeah, but it's the military and the Secretary of Defense and all these things. It doesn't pass the common sense test in, like, so many ways. Like, imagine you run a multinational company with millions of employees around the world, and you decide, I'm going to pull every manager at every level back for a meeting. Minimum, they're off the grid for one day for the meeting. Realistically, 2 to 4 based off of travel. You say, okay, you can do that. But think of what that has to be accomplishing. It has to be so important that you're taking everyone out of the field. Now, what those people are doing is national security, like a threat that doesn't sleep. So it's hard to imagine what would be so important to take all of these people out at all. We do have we have the ability to communicate around the world via classified means, secure means.
Yeah, signal
We've
chat.
done that. Signals one, yep. We do have that capability. The other thing that's weird here is like he's summoning a rank, not a position. So like it would almost make more sense to say I want all of the brigade commanders, or I want all of the combatant commanders, or I want all of the intel officers, or all sorts of different ways to break it out. This is everything. So you're getting infantry dudes and artillery and aviation and logistics. You're getting the guys that are running all operations in Africa, to the ones running special operations around the world, to the ones in charge of training troops here in the United States, to the ones that just sit on a staff and report to like 6 different generals that have no direct reports of their own. Like, it is so wide ranging that it is hard to, like, the only thing these people have in common is their rank in a lot of ways. Mm-hmm. Like, you cannot compare somebody that runs like the training for medical personnel in San Antonio, Texas, to the guy running special operations missions in Syria. Yet they're going to be in the same room getting the same message. So, like, I don't know. We'll see.
I think so. CNN and Politico came with scoops, and I believe the New York Times has since backed up both of their reporting as to what this is going to be about, or what they have been told from Pentagon higher ups what it's about, right?
Is that the one where
Which
they said,
is,
like, go ahead.
Yeah, so they say that Hegseth has gathered everyone together to give them a speech on warrior ethos and to tell them about new grooming standards. And these new grooming standards are, it's about telling people if they have this, like, certain, you probably know the phrase of it. It's like, if your hair on your face
grooming
grows
standards,
inward, yeah, then they need to be separated within 12 months. And apparently it's really bad for the Navy because, like, 20 to 30% of sailors have that disorder. So each ship will be losing it or something like that. I was reading from a foreign policy reporter, and he has that. And he also, the reason he chose the generals instead of, like, I don't know, just going, like, to West Point and telling the kids, all right, sit down for a lecture, is because he believes it would look better for social media. And this is...
that is a focus. There was an article this past week. Did you see that? Where they, Breitbart, the only, one of like the few outlets that has a permanent presence at the Pentagon, they were the ones that got picked for like traditional, for permanent media space at the Pentagon. Their story this week, their exclusive, it was called, was that Hegseth's social media is slamming Lloyd Austin's social media. They were comparing, they were comparing likes. So like that is a part of it.
So I know you don't. I know most of our audience does. I know you don't, but there's a big trend in sports games now, whether it's NBA 2K or the new PGA game or MLB The Show, that revolves around followers. And in order to do more things, you need to get more followers. Okay. And this is just like U.S. government 2K26, right? I mean, Hegseth needs more followers if he wants to go golfing with Trump. So that's why he's calling all generals and he's going to give a speech to them. I mean, that's basically what's happening here.
Let's see where he's at. So Secretary of War is at 838,000 followers. Yeah, you can't invade Venezuela with less than 1 mil.
No, you're going to need 1 mil, and you're going to need, if you want more XP, you want more skill points, you're going to have to call every general in and give him a big speech.
I mean, Taiwan's in trouble if he stays less than under 2 mil before 27. You know, that's not.
Oh, dude, without a doubt.
Yeah.
Without a doubt, dude. He's going to get traded to the Democrats if he doesn't get it together, man. So
they might have to rebrand to Department of Defense. I don't know. Everything's on the table. There's a great.
Absolutely.
I think I already told you that the Onion article or Duffel blog article. Yeah. They said the Pentagon lost all their funding because they renamed from DOD to DOW.
Yes. Yes. So the other big part here of this not scandal, but this like meeting standoff was a very weird. I agree with Preston said I wouldn't read too much into it, and I fully agree with him. But you know, Ben Hodges, former Allied commander for NATO, I believe, in Europe, right?
4-star, yeah.
And he said, look, in 35, Hitler gathered all his generals together and made them take an oath of loyalty or something. And Hegseth quote tweeted it and said, "Cool story, General," or "Cool story, man," or something like that. And I just thought, I don't know. I don't know if there's anything to read into there. I doubt there is, but it was odd, right? I found it to be very principally odd.
Yeah, I mean, I think it plays into the SecDef is very interested in likes and social media, being edgy on social media. We're seeing that from a couple folks in the administration, so it's not all that surprising. But I don't know. It's going to be interesting to see what happens on Tuesday. It sounds like they're going to put this information out after the briefing, but it's just weird, man. Like and something to stress is we are not Russia, so our military forces are built to operate without direct oversight. Like there's a delegation through the chain of command and an empowerment of our junior leaders to where, like, if a general officer is not there, the unit still functions. And some would argue it functions even better. So it's not as though the U.S. military around the world is going to be paralyzed during this period of time, but it just comes back to how does this – you have to weigh, like, whatever is going to happen in this meeting on Tuesday has to be so important that it runs the risk of removing decision makers from around the world.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. It does feel really dumb.
I haven't heard anyone really defend it well. The defense at this point has largely been he can. So, like, and that's not like yes, but yeah, I don't know.
It just feels outrageous. The best part about this is that by calling everybody in, he's almost certainly making the general staff resent him even further, which is good for any nefarious objectives he may have, right?
Well, especially when you get the higher you go up in these ranks, you have to think of them more like high level politicians, in the sense that, like, their calendars are booked full. Like, a 4-star general does not have availability next Wednesday. His Tuesday was not just open in case something came up. Like, they are booked out, and not just with, like, a meeting with their direct reports, but traveling to Turkey to talk with their counterpart in the Turkish military, or like around the world. All of these guys are doing, like, very, very important things day in and day out, and they just had to shut off, again, 2 to 4 days of all that stuff no matter what. So we'll see.
Yeah, dude, it is nuts. Do you want to finish the rest of these questions, or do you want to come back at the end?
Let's come back. We'll come back home.
Yes.
Promise.
All right.
Promise
so
this time.
Ukraine.
We're back, man. We're back. Yeah. No, this is great.
Back.
But do you think it holds?
Go lead us on. I don't know, man. This stuff's like the Stations of the Cross. I mean, right now we're at the station where, Trump says Putin needs to stop. I'm going to back Ukraine, yada, yada, yada. But then we're going to get to the next station tomorrow, and Putin's going to call. It's going to be Ukraine's fault again, and then we're going to see Macron on Monday in the Oval Office with Mark Rutte, and then Trump's going to go, "Oh, you're right. This is Putin's fault." And then we're just going to do it over and over again. It's like I said, it's like the Stations of the Cross, but we live perpetually in a Good Friday to Easter Sunday timeline, okay? And we just do it on repeat every 2 weeks.
I'm a little bit more optimistic, and I'm prone to reading into optimistic takes, so I know that. Yes. The difference that I'm seeing here is we did see a lot of the administration officials kind of circle the wagons on these new statements. Dude, we had Secretary Bessent talking about how Russia is bad the other day. Like, what? Where is that coming from? And it wasn't just tariffs. It was kind of a question about tariffs, but he ended up with, like, Russia is testing NATO in this war. Like, what? We're getting the same message. Rubio is kind of out doing his own thing and kind of saying the same thing he always has. But we're seeing, let's see, it was multiple officials. We had Ambassador Waltz. We had Caroline Leavitt, the White House press secretary, and there were at least a couple others. I think it was, the day after all those statements came out, Hegseth put out a note, "Hey, I talked to Estonia. We will stand with NATO." It's like, all right, listen, sounds like not a lot, but we weren't saying that just a few days ago. So something has changed to where that everybody is on board with that message, and we haven't really seen that before.
I hope so. I hope that this is the moment that we back and we get serious about this, because Russia keeps flying these drones into NATO airspace. And for some reason, the Nords are just like kind of letting them hang around. At least the Poles shot them down.
Did they?
But they shot down, what, a few, right?
I don't know. I feel like there's mixed reporting on that. If they just crashed, or at the very least, it might have been some EW jamming to bring them down. But that seems to be a point of contention right now. We're seeing some reporting that there's not consensus across the NATO alliance, that some countries, I think Germany was called out by name, saying maybe we shouldn't shoot. Now, they were talking about manned fighter aircraft. But you've got others, like Poland is like, let us go. Like, we'll shoot it down over someone else's airspace. We don't give a shit. Like,
yeah, they want that no-fly zone.
Did you see the speech from Sikorsky at the General Assembly?
I saw parts of it.
It was great. You should watch it.
That reminded me, the other thing we have to talk about is revoking the Colombian president's visa today.
That was overnight. I was busy watching Florida State football, so you're going to have to fill me in on that one.
Yeah, absolutely.
Real quick, though, Sikorsky's speech. I'm going to send it to you. We should plug it in here because I think it's awesome. But he just like ravaged the Russian people. He's like, I know that you don't care about law and order, and I know you don't care about freedom and prosperity. But if you fly another jet into NATO airspace, don't come back here crying when it's shot down. You have been warned. It was like, okay, all right.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
I like it. Now let's do something about it. You know what I mean?
Yes. Yeah. I fully agree. I hope they do shoot him down. And here's the thing. People say it's needlessly escalating. I don't know. I keep your sky junkers on your side of the border. I also think by shooting them down, you are making sure Russia is under no illusion as to what a war looks like and as to what a war would involve, right? It is very easy to assume that our enemies are both irrational actors and rational actors. But what we often don't consider is that they are having the same conversations about what our response may be, right? That we are having about them. And by shooting down these aircraft, you are making clear what this involves, what this partakes, and you want to make sure, look, there is no ifs, ands, or buts. Like, if you keep doing this, your stuff's going to be shot down.
There's a way to go about it, too, where this is not an ambush of Russian aircraft, but the next time a Russian MiG flies into NATO airspace, you just follow the protocol. You make 150% sure that they actually are in NATO airspace. You put out the verbal warning over the radios. Then you bring fighter jets up near them to try to steer them back into Russian or international airspace. And then when they don't abide by 1, 2, you don't wait 12 minutes and hope that they actually exit. You shoot them down. You just follow this standard protocol. And like Russia needs to understand that there is, like, these are hard lines. And that's not, again, I would argue that is not escalatory. The escalatory act here is Russia penetrating NATO airspace and seeing what happens, and then doing it again, and then doing it again, and doing it again. Shutting that door in their face and saying, this is not a place you can go, is the opposite of escalatory. It is saying, this line still stands. Do not try it again.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. I mean, Turkey did it in 2015. You know, nothing really happened. And granted, it's a different time, but, like, they can't get mad. I mean, they can. The French ambassador, or the Russian ambassador to France, can say it'll be war all he wants. But at the end of the day, I mean, we decide when the war starts, not them. So shoot it down, and if they have complaints about it, they can stop flying it over the border. I don't see what's so insane about that, you know?
Just don't fly in NATO airspace. Like, my pushback to this when people get all riled up is, when was the last time an F-35 just happened to be detected over in Russian airspace? Like, we haven't accidentally done that in I don't know how long, if ever. Like, when has an F-16 just on normal patrol been like, oh, wait a minute, all of a sudden I'm 10 miles into Russia? Like, this is not a normal occurrence.
Conniption fit.
Right, it's not a normal occurrence. So, like, hey, Russia, just don't do that. We have somehow managed to not do that, right? Poland is not, like, occasionally just flying into Belarus accidentally and seeing what happens. Like, just don't do that.
Right. So let me ask you this: are you for just shoot them down, or do you think maybe one more step when we start flying into their airspace and, you know, doing maneuvers and doing whatever?
No, because
or do you think that's more escalatory than shooting down?
NATO is a defensive alliance, and there's no real rationale for us to fly into Russian airspace that could be viewed in a defensive nature right now. That, to me, would be escalatory. NATO exists to defend the territory of our member states, and that's it. So when they move into NATO, you step up, you draw that hard line, you close the door in their face. There's no scenario right now where it makes sense to respond by flying into Russia. That just plays into Russia's hands in a lot of ways.
That's, well, I mean, like, does it, though? I guess, like, NATO is a defensive alliance, but we're also, like, you know, you shake the cage, the dog's going to bark, right?
I think there are a lot of ways you can do that without... So what we don't want to do, and we're really bad at this, is losing the messaging war and doing things that are just very clearly like a layup for the other side. I'm speaking about the United States generally, but the West in a whole, we just tend to hand them victories for no good reason. So this is one of those where before we fly fighters or bombers or whatever over Russian airspace, there's a lot of other things we could do. We could just simply increase our presence on NATO's flank. Mm-hmm. We could send more fighter squadrons or bombers or even missile systems to NATO countries for deploy those. We could set up a no-fly zone over the western area of Ukraine. We could put air defense interceptors into western Ukraine, maybe even inside of Ukraine, to shoot down anything that's heading into Poland. All of those would still be viewed as defensive in nature, and I think would send a signal to Russia. So I do think there's a lot more we could do in the defensive realm that would be viewed as a strong signal.
That's fair. That is fair. So perhaps we just stay on our side of the border for now. Do you see this? Do you see this as just like a pop-up, or do you think this is going to spiral into something larger? How do you see this? Do you see this ending with Russia being renamed to Occupation Zone 1 through 33? Or do you see this being like, okay, this was a moment, but now it's fine?
I genuinely think that Putin is testing the NATO alliance right now to see what he can get away with. And I don't think he's eyeing a military invasion. Russia cannot, this hasn't changed. Russia cannot take on NATO in a conventional military sense. And there's no indication, despite all their bluster and that just this week Medvedev threw out more nuclear threats, there's no indication that Russia wants to kick off a nuclear war with NATO. Like, that doesn't do anything, right? A lot of people die. Russia probably dies. Putin's gone. Like, so there's no real reason for Russia to instigate a direct conflict with NATO at all. Russia has been good historically and currently at these kind of unconventional warfare tactics. If you look at the little green men that they employed in the Donbass and in Crimea in 2014, very effective. If you look at the use of the Wagner Group, kind of paramilitary organizations, private military companies in Africa right now, very effective. If you look at some of their sabotage operations, their disinformation campaigns, all of that stuff is very effective and kind of undermines areas that they have an interest in. We haven't seen that employed fully in Estonia, Latvia, Lithuania, Poland, definitely in the eastern portion of NATO. I would see that as the next big step before any sort of military action.
Well, so let me ask, why do you think the little green men was effective? Because my understanding has always been that the little green men was obvious from the start, but it was effective in the sense that the United States and NATO just didn't really want to do anything about it, and Ukraine itself was in the middle of a revolution. I mean, is that a tactic that would work if anyone cared at the time?
It's still being utilized today. So China has these, what are they called? Like can't remember what they're called, blue water pirates or something. No, it's the same thing where they've got military personnel on what are marked as civilian fishing vessels out harassing fishermen in contested waters. And they present it as like, these are just civilians, and look at their guys bullying our guys. And like, it's straight up Chinese military assets, just not wearing a uniform. And we know what it is, but there's just enough gray area there to where, like, do you strike it? Like, do you blow it up? Like, then you have to prove that these are military and then prove that they're military on orders from China. It's not easy. It's the reason that this unconventional stuff works. And I would argue the fact that we didn't take any real action in 2014. I think it shows that the little green men it was just confusing enough to where we know it's Russia, right? Yeah. But Russia says it's not Russia, right? Like,
yeah.
Just a little bit of confusion did the trick. Now, I don't know that Russia could do that exact same thing, that exact same playbook, but that whole idea of just making it confusing. Don't roll tanks across the border with the Russian flag. It's a separatist movement, right? It's a domestic organization trying to free them from the chains of Western capitalism or whatever it might be.
Yeah, maybe. I just don't think that move from Russia would be effective anymore. Like, I think it would be so obvious what it was, right?
But isn't that stuff happening right now? When you look at some of the sabotage and the disinformation campaigns, a lot of the meddling in some of the elections in Europe, I feel like it is happening, and we know that it's happening, but it's still having a degree of success.
That is a good point. I am surprised that the sabotage is not being named and shamed more. It seems often that they go, well, Russia's maybe a suspect. I mean, I don't know, man. You do the math. There weren't munitions plants blowing up all over the place back in 2021.
Could it be the Taliban? I don't know.
Right. Look, Europe has a pretty small list of enemies. It's Serbia and Russia. So, and I don't think it's the Serbs. So, not anymore, at least. So I don't really know where they're going with that. It is quite bizarre. Do you think we will see the United States ship weapons to Ukraine?
As of now, yes. I think no. Sorry. Better way to phrase that. We will provide weapons for sale for NATO, and then NATO countries will determine what they send to Ukraine. I feel like we have crossed that line, and that's the direction we're going to go.
I thought I saw a headline where they were stopping some sales.
Yeah. Oh, God, Ben. This is such a roller coaster, man. Every day, and it's not even like week to week; it's like day to day. So, right. Patriot interceptors popped up on a list of apparently from Elbridge Colby, one of the undersecretaries of defense, that we're not going to be making these available for sale because we need them. And I feel like this is one of those things where we're talking out of both sides of our mouth. I get pissed when I start thinking about how far behind our defense industry is because we've had years to build on this. And I think it is inexcusable that there are countries around the world that would buy 10x the Patriot interceptors they're buying right now, and we can't find a way to build them. I got it. It's hard. I got it. It's expensive. I got it. It takes time. They've been asking for these for years now. At the very least, 3 years since the start of the Russian invasion, 3.5 years. It is not good that we have not found the way to. There are people asking for this product. I want to buy it. I want to buy more than you have. And here we are 3.5 years later, like, God, we're just not going to be able to find a way to do that. Really? The private sector can't find a way to make more money?
I think there is a way to do it. It's just, do American politicians have the bravery to do it? A big part of the whole, Ukraine aid with Biden and then a bit under Trump here, although not as publicly, has been like, oh, we're revitalizing towns in Pennsylvania and Ohio and Missouri, and we're giving them more weapons, right? And they're going to build these weapons in their factories, and these workers are going to then, be contributing to their communities again. But it's 2025, and I think that is a nice story, and it is one I like to tell. But ultimately, if we're serious about this, it's time to turn off the lights and have some dark factories make these as they do in China, right? I just don't see the need to continue to have American workers make these. I mean, if we're in a time of crisis, and we can have legislation later about automation and AI and everything, but if we are truly in a time of crisis, as they are saying, it is time to have dark factories. It is time to have automated factories building this stuff.
Well, this is where I push back, because you're saying it's so urgent we have to do it this way. I would say it's not urgent if we haven't found a way to get there in three years. Like, we're talking out of both sides of our mouth. Is it such a priority or is it not? And this shutdown of not selling them overseas does not transfer those orders to domestic purchases. Like, it's not like, well, the U.S. ordered 100 and Poland ordered 50. We're going to shut off the 50 for Poland, and now it's 150 for the U.S. There's no indication that we're upping our production at all or our purchases. We're just not going to sell any. The ironic thing here is what you just described, jobs flowing into factories that have been shut down and maybe propping up industries and towns that are kind of on the downward spiral. That's Russia right now. That is one of the arguments as to why Putin actually wants this war to continue, is because there were areas all around the country that were on a downward decline, no real job prospects, and they went, hey, that factory that used to build some shitty cars, that thing's going to refurbish tanks. This one's going to build drones. That one's going to churn out new anti-tank rockets. And they just flooded these industrial areas, brought in new workers, and they started making wages they haven't had in years. So the concern in Russia is when the war stops, you don't need to refurbish as many tanks. You don't need to build as many drones. You don't need as many electronic warfare jammers. All of that stuff, the demand goes down, those jobs go away, and those cities and those towns all of a sudden are back in the same depression they once were. Why are we not doing that? Like, everybody likes to talk about how the military-industrial complex is just like padding the pockets of the... Where are those people? Like, I'm sure there's some stock prices going up here or there, but like, we have the opportunity to build out this sector to benefit the American people that can go get jobs. Why are we not doing it? It's so frustrating, man. And this is, again, I feel like this is very clearly not a Democrat or Republican thing. It is a U.S. government policy thing. We're just dropping the ball.
I agree. I think it is urgent. I think the U.S. Congress understands it's urgent. But I think our system is so broken. Everything here is just broken. Nothing works. It's not a Democrat or Republican thing. It's just the way it is. And they can't respond to the moment as is. The United States got used to being the top dog for 20 years. And now it's time, change up. Revert back to the Cold War days, and they're kind of behind here. And if they don't get it together, they're going to be in big trouble. And on the flooding manufacturing of these towns, I think it's nice that we're revitalizing Scranton, Pennsylvania. And I think, I'm sure Russia likes that they're revitalizing these towns. But as you said, it's fleeting, right? Because it'll be just like Erie, Pennsylvania, or St. Louis, Missouri, or Cairo, Illinois, that these towns are big, for a year, 2 years, 10 years, and then they just fade away to the edges of time, right? As they, industry moves away. Go to Nevada. There's a ghost town for every, there are 10 ghost towns for every real city. So it's, they gotta get together, and they need to do automated factories, and they need to drop the pretense that, like, this aid for Ukraine's good because we're giving people jobs again. I think there are many ways you can do it. If they're truly serious about this, hire those workers to monitor the automated machines from 9 to 5. They're gonna just sit there. If you're really worried about losing votes, just hire them to sit in there and watch. But like, if we don't get serious, we are going to lose, big lose. And I'll be damned, folks. I don't think Elbridge Colby is right about a single thing, never has been. And he's the most British-looking dude I've ever seen before in my life. And some of these things he's saying, Preston, are the most British things I've ever heard before in my life. He acts like a European, and no offense to our beautiful, wonderful European listeners, but all I hear out of his mouth is, we can't. Every American I know, it's called American, not Americant, right? And every American I know, it's like, well, we can do this if we do it this way. And all he does is say what we can't do.
So, not great news. We probably won't get Bridge on the podcast anytime soon.
No.
I showed up in his when he went down like this spiral of NAFO is a CIA-backed organization. He used a couple of my videos as evidence of that. So
It's got that haircut. It's got that dumb haircut.
But look, you were saying, American can't. Here's the bigger picture concern is I'm worried that it's not a matter of we're not doing it. It's a matter of we cannot do it. Mm-hmm. And we don't know, because I hate the mindset of, sure, with sports or whatever it might be, like I will be able to do that thing when the time comes. I don't need to do it right now. I can play at that level when needed. I'm going to save it for the game. Can we? My hope is that if the United States is involved in a large-scale war and we need more tanks, we need more aircraft, we need more air defense interceptors, that we can rally and put something together like we saw in World War II. But I'm getting concerned that we have those opportunities from time to time and we're not meeting it now. It's nerve-wracking to think, but we'll be fine when we actually need it. Like, I think that's a gamble that makes me pretty nervous.
It does. I think we buy too much into the World War II story, right? Which is that we were ill-prepared, we got punched in the face, and then we came back stronger and more powerful than ever because, whatever that Japanese general, we have awakened a dragon or whatever the hell he said. I think we buy too much into it. Times have changed. Manufacturing's changed. And at that time, people forget, but the United States was the manufacturing capital of the world. We are no longer. We are the second biggest exporter of manufactured goods, high-end manufactured goods, though. You're going to have to get smart. And if we keep going, when our back's against the wall, we'll do it. We're a very rich country with a lot of resources to throw at things. But at the end of the day, China looks more like pre-World War II America than America looks like pre-World War II America. If anything, America looks like Britain. I don't know if that's an accurate comparison, but it feels accurate, doesn't it? Pre-World War II.
Yeah, so, I don't know. I agree with the China-U.S. thing. Yeah. I think it'd be hard to... I don't know, man. Not super positive. I don't like the direction that's headed.
No, I wish they would just get a very serious thing, and we need to get this shipbuilding on. I know Elbridge Colby wants to cancel the AUKUS deal, which I think would be devastating for our relationship with the Australians. I do feel as though there is something deep inside both the Americans and the Australians that bind us together. But I think if you cancel that deal after everything they did to get that deal and the humiliation they went through with France and the falling out, it's not good, right? I mean, it's going to make us look really bad if we back out on these nuclear submarines. And Elbridge Colby's whole thing is that we need them for our fleet. The way the deal works is that we keep our submarines until all of them are ready. I believe that's how the deal works. And then we give them, until we have the proper backups. Then we give them to Australia. It's like the most generous deal we've ever gotten. And our shipyards, they're too slow. And I don't know if it's that we don't know how to build ships anymore, or submarines. I guess they're technically submarines, right? But get it together. Get it together, folks. Maybe they just need a pep talk. Maybe Pete Hegseth needs to summon these guys.
That might do the trick. Things might change on Tuesday, man. Yeah.
Yes. All right. So the UN, before we get to Israel and Venezuela, the President Petro of Colombia, the State Department announced last night that they are revoking his visa for what they said was calling on U.S. soldiers to disobey orders and incitement to violence. I have seen a few translations of what he said, and I feel confident enough to say what he said probably wasn't great, but I would not say it's incitement, and I would also say it's pretty mild in general. He said, essentially, he called on U.S. soldiers to disobey orders that involve them turning their guns on humanity. That's pretty light, right, compared to what people are saying, he said, and how perhaps, there are different translations out there. But from what I have seen from Spanish-speaking reporters, that is what he said, and I don't think that's really, worth revoking a visa over. I've seen some people say they're going to arrest him. I think that would be really dumb. I'd be surprised if they arrest Petro. But, yeah, not great.
I mean, I have a pretty low threshold, honestly, for foreign leaders talking to or kind of directing anything in our military. Honestly, like they can say whatever they want from their country, of course. Like, but yeah, I don't have much sympathy for anybody directing anything at the U.S. military while they're here in the United States when they're a leader of a foreign nation. I think, yeah, I don't. If we decide that he shouldn't be here because of something he said, like, okay. I don't like that we are removing visas of foreign leaders, but yeah, my threshold for that is pretty low. If it was criticism of the government or something, like I'd say the threshold's a little bit higher, but don't do that. Like, could you imagine, again, turn the tables here and have if a U.S. president went to a foreign nation and said, hey, I want to address the military personnel out there, do not obey orders that you, like, we'd be like, whoa, that is crazy. So yeah, probably something he shouldn't have done, at least while he was here in the United States.
I get your point, but the way I view it is he was here for the UN. So, he was here for the UN. He gave a speech. Then he was outside the UN in a protest. He had some bullhorn. It wasn't a very big crowd as far as I could see. But the way I view it, I don't know. It didn't seem like a direct call for anything. It seemed pretty, like, light, the way I view it, you know? I don't know. Maybe I'm wrong here. But, like, he just said, disobey orders to turn your gun away from humanity. I feel like I've heard American leaders say that, but you're right.
I think it's fine for American leaders to say that.
Yeah, right.
That's where I'm drawing the line. Is I think it's fine for anyone, even elected officials, to put out statements like that. But for a foreign leader to come in here and address the troops in that way, I don't like. I mean, I know he wasn't addressing the troops, but again, my threshold's pretty low on that one. Yeah. However, an American official, American citizen, say it all day.
Yeah.
However you want.
Yeah, I won't defend what he said, but I hope they don't arrest him because I think that would be really bad for the implications of the UN going forward, you know?
Yeah. Because, I don't think that's a good move. And you know, maybe, and if he had said it on the floor of the United Nations during his speech, that's a different scenario. And maybe he can come back and for diplomatic visits and things like that. But, you know, a little slap on the wrist is the kind of thing. Like, hey, man, don't, come on.
I agree. I do wonder if the United States is hurting its ability to host the UN. I know, like, we have the headquarters, right? Mm-hmm. But they also have one in Geneva, and I worry the whole thing they did with the Iranians, banning them from Costco. I'm not saying the ban from Costco is like, oh, okay, now it's done. But, you know, the Petrov thing and messing with the Iranians, trying to go to Costco and everything, I don't know. I've always felt like you're supposed to be objective with it and just, like, let it be. So I don't know. I hope we're not hurting our status of holding the UN. And I think if we start leveraging, you know, the fact that it is in New York City, could come back to hurt us.
I gotcha. Were his comments directed around anything in particular? That sounds like Gaza.
Yeah, he was, for the most part, it's about Gaza and Palestine. And then I don't know. I don't know. Some translations suggested that he was talking about the Caribbean with the strikes going on there, Venezuela.
Thinking, yeah, but
then other translations I've seen have just been like it's solely about Gaza, solely about Palestine.
Which, like, we don't have troops there, and there's no indication we're going to. So to me, I don't know. Things have been weird of Colombia. Colombia is a major non-NATO ally, and what I found out last night is that apparently Petro is the first left-wing president Colombia has ever had in its entire history. I don't know if that's true. I heard it from a Colombian, you know, so, you know, maybe it's true, maybe it's not, but I trusted it. But, I don't know. Well, I'm interested in your thoughts on this, to shift to Gaza real quick, if that's all right.
Yeah, let's go to Gaza.
Yeah.
Well, not literally, but yeah.
Not changing the background, man. Can't get it back.
I also want you to tell us about the flotilla of Spain and Italy, what's going on with that as well.
Not entirely sure. That seems like a mix of information at this point. It doesn't seem clear. Like there's been, like they're under attack or they're not. It's hard to imagine anybody attacking that. Like it doesn't make a lot of sense.
Right.
At all. It's just like a highly public way to draw a lot of hatred. So I don't know. I'm not following the flotilla too awful much. But with Gaza, we did see a lot of countries, including Canada, France, the United Kingdom, and others. I think the right way to say it is take steps, announce that they are going to recognize a Palestinian state. I don't think they can just say that and it's done. I imagine there's something they have to do domestically, but either way, their intentions were made clear in their recognitions of Palestine. The United States seems to be holding the line. We saw statements from multiple officials saying, nope, no change, we're not going to do it. Just wanted to get your thoughts on, like, is that important? Does it matter? What does it mean? All of it. Open-ended.
I think it is important that our allies are recognizing Palestine. Are you asking me, do I think it's important that the United States recognize it or doesn't recognize it? Or...
We can get to that. Just big picture, what are your thoughts on that? Because those were pretty significant changes this week.
Yeah, so I think it is a big deal that they are recognizing Palestine. It suggests that Israel could be subjected to more sanctions, right? It also hurts Israel's credibility more generally because the whole thing is, with this war they've been saying they're fighting, it's an internal matter, right? But if all of Europe recognizes Palestine as a country, it's not an internal matter, right? It's the equivalent of, like, I don't know.
You're not going to be able to come up with a good comparison. So
no, I was going to say it was the equivalent of, like, Israel and Gaza, and I was like, but I can't compare one thing to itself, you know? So, like, it kind of changes that. It also changes the coalitions going forward, right? In terms of defending Israel.
Yeah, France shot down some of the Iranian missiles, didn't they?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep. So did the UK. And they've also recognized Palestine. So I did see some pretty funny reactions where Trump went to the UK, met Keir Starmer, and then the next headline was, after the meeting, Keir Starmer announces that the UK is recognizing Palestine as a state, and people were like, oh my God, what happened in that meeting? Which I thought was just cracking me up. But yeah, I do think there are pretty big implications here going forward. Now, of course, it does annoy me that the United States is, I don't want to say they've abandoned their two-state solution pledge, but it certainly feels like they have, right? I know that the Trump plan for Gaza, as they announced last night, does not involve the forced removal of Palestinians. Thank God, you know? But the United States has to get serious about this. Netanyahu will never allow a Palestinian state to exist, right? And so we're going to have to get serious about a solution here, and we cannot keep taking his word for it. And I know that's, I guess kind of a hot take here, but this dude, it's been almost coming up on 2 years now, right? There's nothing left in Gaza. We have how many hostages left? 3? No.
50.
50. Jesus Christ. 50 hostages.
Living and dead, for what it's worth. Some of those were...
Oh, okay. Yeah. So they got to get together here, and this is a big deal, and it's going to hurt Israel in the long run, and they don't really seem as if they care all that much about what Europe is doing.
I agree.
So I wonder what will happen. Canada also recognized Palestine as well. And I know, the House Foreign Relations Committee lashed out at our allies, saying, what good are they, blah, blah, blah. Calling them a variety of mean names, just whatever. But our European allies are not vassals. They are independent nations. And Canada, also not a vassal, also not European. But, they are not vassals. And you have to respect what they do. And I don't understand the urge to kind of dogpile and attack them when they do something we disagree with. So that is shameful, and I don't know. What do you make of it? I've been yapping here. What do you make of it?
I'm torn. A part of me thinks that a lot of this has to do with more of a punishment of Israel than anything. Kind of building frustration with how they're executing the war. And I get that. I understand that. I understand the desire to do that. I do agree with something that I think it was Rubio said the other day, where this might make negotiations harder because Hamas will view it as a step in the right direction. And I wish we could, this doesn't help anything, but I wish we could separate the war and this conversation could have been had without an ongoing conflict, because I feel like it would make it easier. I don't like anything that makes it harder to negotiate. And if this makes it harder to negotiate, I think that was foolish. But it's the trend at this point, right? We've got 80+% of the UN General Assembly that recognizes a Palestinian state. I saw some assessments referring to it as performative in nature, kind of virtue signaling, because it doesn't really do anything. I mean, to your point, it moves the ball in a certain direction, but it doesn't accomplish anything. Like, nothing is different today, legally, than last week, before these announcements were made, but it's vibes, and you can't discount that entirely. It's vibes in the direction of the recognition of a Palestinian state. So you can't say that's nothing. I don't know. I don't have any objection to, on a personal level, I don't have any objection to a Palestinian state. I'm thinking simply in terms of like how this affects the war, and will it bring it into the war, and what does this mean long term for the United States if we find ourselves more and more and more, like, the trend we're on is we're going to be the only ones not recognizing a Palestinian state outside of Israel.
Right. I think right now it's vibes, but I also think it does aim to constrain Israeli activity, because if they go to annex the West Bank, which Trump says he won't let happen, but if they go to do that, that is, and I'm not a diplomat by trade. I'm a Ben Lamat, but if they go annex the West Bank, that is equivalent, at least based on this recognition, to what Russia's doing in Ukraine, right? They are attempting to annex another sovereign nation. And so that allows these European countries to set up harsher sanctions and would allow them to penalize Israel. So you're right, to a certain extent, it is setting up a way to penalize Israel if they don't get together. It is strange to me that we seem completely unable to constrain Israel. Reagan, back in the day, forced terms upon Israel. Clinton did the same. It just seems as though we're just unable to figure out how to constrain Israel, and I have no idea why that is. And maybe it's just because, parts of, the American left and right are just so all in on this. But it is very odd to me that there seems to be no willingness to try to rein Israel in any way, or to make them follow any kind of international convention. And it seems weird the United States is like just ignoring any pressure from its NATO allies and its non-NATO major allies.
So another piece here, though, that kind of hit home to me when, again, I think it was Rubio talking about this being performative, is like, this conflict is performative in the sense that, like, people around the world flock to it as their cause for any number of reasons. And we see people just straight up virtue signaling about it. That's nothing new, and more with this conflict than any other. And I saw the Houthis take on this was they don't care. They were like, guys, these countries recognize Palestine and then still send Israel weapons and share intelligence. So, like, they're just doing this to make a statement, to appease some element of their domestic base. And I feel like that is such a big part of this conflict. Like, if you look at the countries in the Middle East that are doing very little to nothing to assist with bringing about an end to this war, but they're taking every opportunity to, send a message. But when it comes to actual actions, there's no real actions. And I think you could say the same about the United States for all of the times that people would stand up and say, this is wrong, or we're not going to allow this, or whatever it might be. Nothing changed. Like, you can point to, like, in Rafah, Biden generally got the IDF to, like, slow down before going into Rafah. And there was, for a short period of time, a hold on certain munitions. But, like, generally nothing changes at all for all of this talk. So I don't know. That's why I tend to fall more in the camp of vibes. It's a direction based thing, but I just don't think any of it has made an impact yet. But this might be different. These are big. These are very powerful, very important nations, very strong U.S. allies making that shift. So maybe this time it's different.
Let's hope. I hope the best for the Palestinian people and the Israeli people.
Just people in general.
I hope there's a resolution here. Well, I mean, who doesn't, right? But speaking of resolutions, Venezuela, what's happening here? We're going to apparently take strikes inside the mainland?
There's reporting last night on NBC that we're looking at carrying out strikes against cartel leaders and facilities inside of Venezuela. Congratulations, everybody who's been listening to the show for a while now. This should not be surprising. We've been talking about this for a while. This was the logical next step with that amount of military firepower in the Caribbean.
It's really a shame that we blew the two titles of, we're going to war with Venezuela and we bombed Venezuela. We already went through those two, so we got to figure out a new creative way to phrase it this time around.
The challenges of YouTube, Spotify.
Right.
So I did see some reporting that there are some people in the Trump administration frustrated that they're not seeing much movement around Maduro. He's not changing anything he's doing, so they're trying to ramp up the pressure. And, it's fair. We haven't really seen anything publicly from Maduro at all. He's chastised these attacks. He's talked about being under attack from the United States and the U.S. staging for war, but apparently he hasn't done anything to crack down on any of the drugs moving through or from Venezuela. So they're looking at what's the next step. And the logical next step in this case, if we are going to escalate, is standoff strikes inside of Venezuela against cartel facilities. So the reporting I saw said stand by for this in the next week or two. I think there's a greater than 50% chance that happens.
With what authority?
We don't do that anymore. But thank you for asking.
I find it so bizarre that we have all these sanctions on Venezuela. Right? The whole point of sanctions is to be punitive, but also to change behavior. Right? And so if you wanted Venezuela to perhaps stop the flow of drugs or crack down a cartel, in theory, based on at least what Marco Rubio used to say in the Senate, is that you could lift some of those sanctions and say, we want you to do this, and if they don't abide by that, then you reapply the sanctions, right? Or you don't have the sanction in the first place, and then you put sanctions in until they change that, right? It's supposed to be the carrot and not the carrot and the egg, the carrot and the stick. And it just seems to me as though we have given up on that. But also, I don't know in what world they think they're in, where they're just going to bomb Venezuela, the mainland. They're talking about regime change. And they have no legal authority, no vote from Congress, no authorization. And people say, well, they'll stack all these anti-war on terror things. Doesn't apply to overthrowing a Latin American government. Yeah, it's not there. And it is not lost on me that those who are calling for this war with Venezuela, who call for regime change, are the same people who have a complete and total meltdown when refugees and migrants come to the southern border. So, if you go forward with this, I like Venezuelan food, but if you don't, you better get used to it, because they will be coming, and you will not be able to stop them. You will have a huge migrant crisis. Refugee crisis.
I think we probably need to view this in a similar vein to maybe Saddam Hussein, if we can come up with comparisons, where we went into Iraq under the veil of the global war on terror, but realistically, we were trying to get rid of Saddam Hussein. And I think we need to look at what's happening in Venezuela as clouded in a war on drugs and stopping the flow of drugs into the United States, but realistically, it's about regime change. It's hard to, when you look at the flow of drugs coming into the U.S., it's not like Venezuela is some of it, but it's not the majority, not by a long shot. There's so many other avenues we could take, cartels we could go after, crossing points we could go after that would have a greater impact on the flow of drugs into the United States. So there's something else here, and if I think it's regime change. I think we're trying to get rid of Maduro. and we're kind of cloaking that in the war on drugs.
I almost feel that a war of Venezuela is less legitimate than the war of Saddam. Because Saddam was a devil, you know. Even if he didn't have nuclear weapons, he was still a bastard. He was still killing his own people. And he was at least pretending to have nuclear weapons. With Maduro, it's just like, what? Because
Maduro's a shithead, right? Like, let's not, I don't know that he's running the torture
Saddam
chambers.
Shithead,
Yeah.
Yeah. He's not Saddam Hussein, though. I mean, that's a top tier, that's a top 5 villain of all time right there, So it is, I do think there's a lack of legitimacy here. At least if Iraq, they made the case, they went to the UN, they went to the U.S. Congress, we had arguments about it, and you could say, well, they lied the whole time. Sure, that is true. They did lie the whole time. But at least they tried to. Here it's just going to be like, I don't know, Pete Hegseth and, some 23-year-old Miss America lawyer that he hired is going to say, well, he can do it because of XYZ laws that don't exist, If they don't justify this, or at least attempt to in Congress goes to a vote on this, I really think it'll be very bad. I do. I just don't see how they're going to be able to fund this war, how they're going to, and what are they going to do?
Man, what are you talking about?
What did you say?
Tariffs.
That's true. You're right.
We got all this money. We got all this extra money. Let's go to war.
Did you see he said we pulled in $19 trillion in tariffs this year? That is, the U.S. GDP's $27 trillion.
Oh, we're doing great.
So that's crazy. Yeah.
Wow.
$19 trillion in tariffs. But I don't know. I'm kind of beside myself because it's like I'm worrying about the legal authorities, but you're right. None of it matters anymore.
Dude, I saw
an
anonymous, there was a good article, I think it was in Politico, asking a bunch of people about the authority to carry this out, and they had a former Democratic strategist that said, international law, if your argument is international law, you've already lost. And it's like, oh, shit.
But also, like, it's U.S. law, though.
Yeah,
right?
There's U.S. law involved here, too. It was just this, like, oh, so we're just not even pretending anymore. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. I worry about where we're going, and it worries me. And with all this talk about the domestic terrorism stuff, I mean, they're going to carry it over into the United States. Not the Venezuelans, but the administration. And I have not. Everyone likes to cheer these on, but for what reason?
The strikes?
No one has seemed to explain the rationale. And it just seems a bit ridiculous to me, and I hope they don't do it. I anticipate they will do it, though. I just don't know how he's going to get the Nobel Peace Prize, though. Then.
Hard to do that if you start a war. We'll see.
Well, I mean, this is the same man who bombed Iran. And he still wants it. Do you know what the 7 wars are that he claims he ended?
They're listed on the White House website.
Are they really?
Yeah.
Can we pull them up?
I'll go for it. Why don't you jump into the first question, some of the questions, and I'll get this pulled up.
Yes. All right. So, we have, is the current administration capable of winning this situationship with Venezuela? What are our win conditions? That's a good question. So, I would say the win conditions, so they haven't outlined them at all. They haven't said this to anyone, as we just said. Maybe it's getting rid of Maduro, but if you get rid of Maduro and you have a refugee crisis at your southern border, do you win still? I don't know.
I think that's a gamble if people come to the southern border. I don't know that that's... I think that one of the gambles they're making is that the removal of Maduro will lead to a more stable Venezuela and will stop people from wanting to leave the country and maybe even have people wanting to go back. I think that's a gamble, but I think that might be part of the consideration.
I think they're a little... What happened in Syria is a miracle. The fact that al-Shara took over and everything was stable enough, and that people came back. That's not usually how it goes, though. It's usually chaotic. It's usually disastrous. I listened to a Russian commentator once talk about the difference between how Americans talk and think of revolution versus how Russians talk and think of revolution. And she said, look, for Americans, revolution, it was clean. Well, they kicked the British out, and then they took over, and they had a country immediately, and there was no continuation of the revolution. There was no rebellion. There was no civil war. It just worked. George Washington took over. We had elections, free and fair, and yada, yada, yada. But in the Russian view, in the European view, revolutions are messy because many of the revolutions didn't stop. They kept going and going and going until ultimately you ended up with an extremist ideology rather than the liberal democratic one the American revolutionaries had, right? And so I don't know. I think they're pretty optimistic. I think it will ultimately blow up. What do you think, Preston? What do you think the win condition is?
I don't think we've outlined it, and that's part of the argument that we've been making is that is it about drugs or is it about regime change? Because those are very different outcomes. One could be working with a tighter collaboration with the Maduro regime, and another one means that he's in a jail cell in the United States or something. So I think part of the challenge right now is that we don't know what the end state is. So that comes back to are we really going to carry out strikes? Why would we? Well, we don't know exactly what we're doing there. A lot of this doesn't line up directly with the idea of just trying to shut down the trafficking of drugs. So I think it's impossible to come up with what actual win criteria would be here because the objective hasn't been, I don't think that's been clearly named.
Yes. Do we have the 7 countries yet?
No.
I don't think they named them.
I thought I saw it. This is driving me crazy. Turns out the White House posts an insane amount of content.
Yeah. So this next one is question for Ben. Who do you think will be the top 3 to 5 names for the Democratic primaries? Not who you want, but who the most likely is. I'm glad you asked. So here are your top 3 to 5. Gavin Newsom, governor of California. J.B. Pritzker, governor of Illinois. I think Pete Buttigieg, the former Secretary of Transportation, will be in there. I believe Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez is going to run. I do not think Kamala Harris will. And then I think the 5th one, I think the big name, and nobody's really thinking about it. There's a young man down in Georgia. He's 38 years old right now. Come 2028, he will be 41 years old, and he will be the youngest president in this nation's history. His name is John Ossoff. He's the Democratic senator for Georgia. I think he's very well spoken, and he doesn't speak a lot, but when he does, it's very forward thinking, and he is very big on this whole push of that. The reason why everything is not working in America is because of corruption. Your healthcare costs are high because of corruption, because your politicians are getting paid. The reason we're so divided is because of corruption, because the media divides us. He's really good at this, and I think people are sleeping on him. I know we're all ready for a Gavin Newsom, J.B. Pritzker grudge match, but I think John Ossoff's going to come out of the sand. What do you think, Preston?
I defer to you on all this stuff. You follow the domestic picture a lot more than I do. But what's the other side of that? Who do you think the Republican candidates would be?
J.D. Vance, Marco Rubio.
Okay.
Yeah, Vance, Rubio, DeSantis. Those might be the only 3 I can think of.
Not as much question with a sitting vice president that could run, I imagine, right?
Yeah. It'll be interesting. Maybe we see a return of Nikki Haley, but I doubt it. So I think those are your big 3. Then maybe it's hard to know. As it stands right now, those are my big 3. But I think, what is Trumpism without Trump?
Mm-hmm.
Does the GOP revert? I don't know. It's hard to say because he has such a stranglehold over the party. So our next question here.
You want the 7? You want me to do the 7?
I do. Yes, please do.
So I could not find it on the White House website, but there's a bunch of articles about fact-checking it. So I got one from the Associated Press here. Yes. Israel and Iran. We know about that one. Egypt and Ethiopia. They say this could be described as tensions, and peace efforts did not involve the United States, but those peace efforts have also stalled. India and Pakistan, And remember, both of those countries came out and said, you were not involved in this. What are you talking about? But either way,
right.
that was a conflict that came to an end. Serbia and Kosovo, they say there has been no threat of a war between the two neighbors during Trump's second term or significant contribution to improve their relations.
Oh, I would, if that's the criteria that counts something. Goddamn, he's peace between the UK and France. There's been no threat of war between the two. Yeah.
Rwanda and the DRC, Democratic Republic of the Congo.
Not anymore.
The conflict is not
They're
over.
fighting again, aren't they? Yeah.
Yeah, they're fighting right now. Armenia and Azerbaijan. In August, he hosted the two leaders, and they signed a deal marking a significant milestone. But they have yet to ratify the deal. So, right direction for sure. Cambodia and Thailand, and both countries did credit Trump with bringing that to a close. But also, last week, Cambodian Thai troops opened up on Cambodian troops, so that's probably not over.
Gosh, they're rigging it against
border
them.
skirmish.
All right, next question here. I have two questions for both of you. Second question, we'll start with you, because second question for Preston. Do you believe there will be a significant attack or attacks on Crimea in the next 6 to 12 months? Because I have a strong feeling the Ukrainians are ramping up for something significant. Thanks, guys. Have a great weekend. We will.
No, I don't think there's going to be significant attacks on Crimea because they are making Crimea untenable with these small pinprick attacks. So we are seeing almost every single day new videos come out showing that, I mean, just this week, Ukraine destroyed transport aircraft, anti-submarine aircraft, helicopters, and radar stations in Crimea. Dude, Crimea is not that big. Like, they are making it very difficult. Like, for a long time, the focus was take out the Crimean Bridge. And, like, that'll do it. That'll shut them off. And we, of course, found out that is easier said than done. What we've seen instead is they have pushed the Black Sea Fleet back in harbor. They're just straight not operating anymore because of the risk of unmanned surface vessels. Aircraft that go out trying to shoot these down are intercepted by surface-air missiles on these vessels. And they're constantly launching drone attacks, knocking out Russian equipment on the peninsula. I don't think there's a value in a large-scale attack. Save those large munitions for Russian airfields in Rostov or closer to Moscow. We're seeing this more and more from Russian mill bloggers as they're saying, what the hell's going on down there, guys? I think that's what we're going to see.
So the next one here is, first question for Ben. Do you think after this administration our allies will be permanently distrustful of us for all these things, such as tariffs and political stances? Yeah, I mean, I think, I don't know, there are some that are like permanent but will probably take a back seat. But I think I think people keep us at arm's length. I'm of the viewpoint now, I just think even whoever the Democrat nominee is in 2028, even if they win, I don't really think we can get back to the role we had during Biden, right? I just don't think there's an appetite for it in the United States. And I don't know. I don't think there'll be a lead. I think maybe we'll be the largest among many in a broader Western coalition, but I don't think we'll be necessarily the leader of it. But of course, I mean, a lot of times to come, maybe Trump will be the one who says, all right, we're going to put an end to Russia, and everyone will love us, and they'll be so happy, and, we will see. Do you have any thoughts?
Well, can I take a shot at that one? I know it's for you.
Absolutely.
But,
yes, absolutely.
So there's still a lot of value to being a friend of the United States, and I don't think that is in the best of times. When we are friends and things are going well, that is a huge benefit to any country around the world. I don't think that has changed. My thought is, if you've ever been in any sort of relationship with someone and they say something that they just can't take back, and it opens that door and you realize oh, that's how they actually feel, you might still be friends with them for the rest of your life, but something's changed, and you can't put that back in the door. You can't shove that back underground. I feel like that is what's happening here. So no matter what comes next month, next year, next administration, next decade, I think we've probably opened our allies' eyes to we are not always the guaranteed ally they might hope for, and that we, in the United States, we can change pretty quickly on a whim. And from one administration to the next, we can take pretty drastic changes to how we approach some of these alliances around the world. I think that is going to be a lesson that will hold.
Yeah, I agree. Next one is, how well do you think NATO's new Secretary General is performing?
Fine. We should not expect a lot from the Secretary General. I think they are essentially trying to keep the peace between all 32 member states. They can never say anything. Like, you're not going to get crazy sound bites out of the Secretary General. You should not. That's not their job. Because they do not speak for 32 different member states. So I generally think they should be a known entity, but kind of fly under the radar. I mean, there's no NATO army. NATO rarely acts as an entire entity, so I think he's doing fine. What about you?
I think he's doing well. I mean, they picked him to be the Trump whisperer, right? Mm-hmm. Because Mark Rutte, he was the Dutch prime minister. He was very Trumpian, but he's also got along very well with Trump. And so they picked Rutte to be the Trump whisperer, and I think he's doing a great job of doing that, right? I have never seen a NATO Secretary General in the United States so much and around the president so much. I feel like he's been in the Oval Office like 6 times this year. So for that reason, I think he's doing quite well. I liked him. I thought he was nice.
Yeah, I mean, I'm just kind of in the camp that, like, Secretary Generals should moderate. They're not the decision makers. So, like, my frustrations with NATO right now, I wouldn't direct at him. I would direct at NATO member states, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
Like, I think he should bring everybody together and make sure that appropriate time is given to things like these airspace incursions. But when NATO decides not to act, I put that on, the countries making the decision not to do something. And I think the biggest impediment right now for anything NATO-related in this war is not a Secretary General. It is Hungary and a couple other, maybe Turkey at times, more than anything else.
I agree. I think, yeah, you're right. Their job is to moderate. I think Mark Rutte has a special responsibility in this one that Stoltenberg definitely did not want to do. He did it the first time around, not interested. But his job is to also be the European voice that sides with Trump, who is not Orban and is from Western Europe.
Yeah.
Right? And he's doing a good job with that. And he also gets to be the European voice that gets to tell Trump, well, maybe let's do it differently. I agree with you on everything else, but I disagree on this part, so let's do it this way. He's doing great there. This other question here, and this will probably be the last one. Any thoughts on the civil wars raging in Myanmar and Sudan?
I've not put the time into to either one of those recently, so I'd be out of my depth.
So here's what I know about the Myanmar Civil War. There are a bunch of Gen Z kids who are pro-democracy, right? And in order to fund their fight, I don't want to call it a rebellion because that sometimes has nasty connotations. They created a mobile game, and that the microtransactions fund their war against the military junta. And they are slowly but surely, as of right now, winning. So, shout out to them. I think that is like the coolest thing. The Sudan Civil War, isn't it a personal feud between 2 generals? That's stupid. That's really dumb, and they should stop that. But the Myanmar one, the military junta takes over, and now you have these kids out there who are like holding most of the countryside. They're fighting against the military, winning. I don't know. I wish the United States would aid them because obviously these are quite crafty individuals. So, shout out. But anyways, folks, I think that'll conclude it. What do you have? You got any big plans today? Any big plans for the weekend?
Watch some football.
Stewie?
I got a dog here that's saying, oh, there she goes. What do you think, Kelly? She's saying that it's time to go.
Yeah.
Football Saturday. So watch some games today. And, just relax, man. You?
Hell yeah. Same here, man. Same here. Great. Well, folks, remember, like, comment, subscribe, give us 5 stars on Spotify, answer our polls, and, become a member on YouTube. We have some members, and I don't believe any of you asked a question this week, but I'm trying to
Top
fix
of
my
the chart
thing so I
for
can.
members, yeah.
Yeah, I'm trying to see it. But you join, I believe it's $3 a month, and it goes to fund, our stuff. So I
go, Ben.
very convincing. Anyways, folks, we'll see you next week.